Justin, welcome on to the No Off Season podcast. Thank you for coming on.
Appreciate it, Will. Thanks for having me, man.
I'm super excited. I've been following you a long time on Instagram. I'm a fan. I love the stuff that you put out. It's just awesome stuff. We were talking about the off-season program might be the most thorough program I've ever seen. But before we jump into all the questions, give us a little background about yourself. Where you from? How'd you get into hoops? Then how'd you get into coaching?
Yeah, man. So I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana, born and raised here. Um, my journey to coaching and this whole industry is similar to a lot of coaches, but my path has been very different. Like most people, especially in the basketball world, I grew up playing basketball. Ultimately, when the ball stops bouncing for you, you look to pivot like, oh shoot, what do I do now? Who am I without basketball? Who like I just dedicated the last 15 years, from the time I was 3 to get, better and go to college and try to, accomplish your dream, and then eventually has to stop. Some people make it to college, some people make it to pro, some people have just a high school career. But ultimately, when that stopped for me, I said, I got to get back to the game somehow. And for me at the time, it was just going back to my old coaches and saying, "Hey, do you need help? Do you need, do you have any AAU teams that need coaches or skill development or anything like that?" So I actually started more as a quote unquote basketball trainer um, in 2012 when I graduated college, and then I during that time, I was, trying to get my certifications and stuff like that to be more on the performance side. And so I kind of saw more demand for my services as a trainer, strength conditioning, that type of stuff. So I then pivoted to do that. And then I did that only for a handful of years, and then decided I'm going to blend those two worlds together. And that's kind of the short condensed version of, the product that you see today. But in terms of, my education is kind of crazy. It's not the typical path that you might think. It's not, I didn't major in exercise science. I didn't major in kinesiology. I'd had no strength conditioning internships. I actually paid for a gym membership at a place that I respected locally as a client to ask them to basically treat me a little different than normal clients, and show me the why behind things. I'll pay the $299 a month. I'll train 2 days a week. I'll be here training hard, but I'm not here with athletic goals. I'm here with career education goals. And so that was kind of my unofficial internship, was basically just being a client at a gym that's similar to what I saw myself working in. So I got into school. I went down the path of like broadcast because I thought I wanted to, talk about sports when my career was over. But that wasn't close enough to the action for me. I wanted to be back in the trenches, in the weight rooms, in the locker rooms, on the court. So by the time I discovered that, it was like my junior year, and changing my major was just not in the cards. Like, I was in a arts program at that time in broadcast, 3 years in, and to go to a science program would have been basically start over from scratch. So
Yeah.
that day when my counselor told me that, I started self-educating that night. Like literally when, and back then it was, that was 2010, 2011. So I'm T Nation, Elite FTS, uh, Mike Boyle stuff, Chaldeet stuff, Eric Cressy
Simply
stuff,
faster.
simply I'm diving deep into those, and that was my first formal education. um, I finessed the job at the bookstore. I rented out all the books that the kids that were in that major needed for for free by just taking pictures, taking copies on my lunch break, and taking copies of the chapters, reading them, going through it. So that's how I educated myself. That turned into clinics, camps, conferences, shadowing people, just grinding on that for a handful of years, and then eventually, um, led to my first job, and from there it was just an uphill climb, and kind of, I'm 12 years in now. Sorry, my dog right next to me. 12 years in now, and there she goes. And
All good.
it's been a
All good.
great journey. Sorry.
No. In order to get maximum value from us, make sure you join our online community at school.com. Inside the community, you can have access to some of the brightest minds as well as courses in order for you to take it to the next level. We'll see you inside. So, would you say that you dove into the performance side because there might have been something that was missing in your training and you wanted to do more for your clients, but you saw that there was a gap that was not being filled? And the reason I'm asking that is because I'm the same way, except I was the other way. I was the other way around from you. I started as an intern in college in strength and conditioning. And so I shadowed the head strength coach. Um, and then I was always a basketball player, but then I moved into skill acquisition and all that type of stuff later on. But what did you see that made you want to go? There's something missing here. Let me see what else I can do for my clients.
Yeah. So at first it was, it was kind of financially driven.
Okay.
There's
Yep.
so many
Yep.
basketball trainers that it's like, dude, how do you even get clients when you first start? And I'm like, at the same time, I always knew I wanted to bring it together, but as bad as it sounds, it was easier for me to like run a legitimate business on the performance side of things. And so, it started as a business decision. And then when I realized that I could, blend those two things together, that's when I really started to get my wheels turning. But, I did see gaps, and I would want to sound, all great to say like I wanted to give the best product possible and, kind of go the politically correct route. But, you know, 24, getting out of college, I'm like, I got to make some money.
For
And I
sure.
was able to make way more money on the performance side of things
Yep.
than the basketball at that time.
Yeah, and I mean, I sent you the questions over yesterday, and there are like one of the things that I do to try and differentiate ourselves from other podcasts is I want to talk to coaches about business, but we'll talk about that later because it is very important in order to be able to sustain what we love so much. So
Hmm.
when you get a player for the first time, they're coming into you, they're working with you. Let's say a basketball player. What are some of the things that you're looking for before you're writing a program for that person?
Yeah. So really, man, it starts on outreach. Like my evaluation period begins when that athlete or their parent or whoever hits me up. That's when I start. I know by that initial conversation, you know, what what are you like? Are you professional? Are you looking for a quick fix? Are you down for the long journey, the process? That outreach means a lot to me because I've seen several ranges. I've seen high school kids, 15, 16-year-old kids who reach out to me on their own, like, hey coach, I really like your program. From what I've seen, I know a couple people who train with you. I was wondering if you had time to train me. I really want to get better. Love it. I love that. That tells me that kid is locked in. Like they're a kid
Yep.
reaching out to a stranger, an adult stranger. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and then there's other that are like, yo man, can I get some work in? I don't, I don't respect that as much, right? Now, when we get a relationship going, and I've known you for a couple months, and we can talk to each other like friends, like you can hit me up on the weekend and say, "Yo, coach, I'm not going to be there tomorrow." I'm as chill as they come in terms of communication and just operations. But like that initial outreach, like I want you to like show me who you are. And I think the approach there, another one that I get that's funny is like, hey, do you charge for workouts?
Ha!
Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
No, I just pray to God that somebody else pays my bills. It's that type of thing. So on the initial outreach, I'm looking at like how are they approaching this? How is the parent approaching this? Like, hey, I have an eighth grader who's really good. His coach at the high school says that he could compete for a varsity roster spot next year. We really want to get him in. We think he could get faster, and we think he could work on X, Y, Z. Do you have some time to chat? Love that. Love that approach. Then you got the other parent that's like, my kid is the best
Yeah.
sixth grader in
Yeah.
this class. We were trying to get some work in. It's like, look, man, I don't care about rankings until you're 17. It truly doesn't matter. So, not to go on a rant about outreach, but I really love that. Like, I've heard coaches say, like, oh, my evaluation and assessment period, it starts when the athlete walks in the door. I'm watching how they walk, and I'm watching if their feet are turned out and how their arms are, swaying and like I'm watching how they hit me up for the first time, and
Mm.
and that tells me what their mindset is. It also tells me maybe it's not where it should be, but they might not know. That's a point on day one, a coaching point that you can work with them on. Like, I'm not saying if a kid's like, "Yo, coach, can we get some work in?" I'm not going to hit them up, but I might fire back a conversation like, "Hey, can you tell me some more about yourself? What are you looking to do?" Um, you know, and when they come in, then I can say, "Hey, man, look, you're going to start. You want to get recruited. You want to go to the next level. You're going to have to learn how to communicate with coaches in a professional way because I'm pretty chill. But you reach out to college coaches like that who have 350 other kids in their inbox on any given day, you might just go straight to the trash.
Yeah.
So, it's one of those things where it's not just a negative thing where I'm just like gonna blow that kid off. You can use it as a teaching point and still develop that relationship with that kid. And who knows, that could turn out to be your best client. It's just, they may not know what they don't know. So from there, from a physical aspect, um, we use the 3D maps that we talked about from the Gray Institute as kind of a working daily assessment, if you will. Like, we'll have a general assessment day where we'll put them through some things, some movements, some tests, nothing too in depth. I like to be fluid there. Um, and then, every day that's a part of our warm up. So the better they get in tune with that and how their body is supposed to feel during that and what I'm supposed to see or what they're supposed to feel, then we can have a little bit of like ongoing assessments uh, based on them getting better at 3D maps. And from there, we go into, just the needs analysis. Where are you now? Where do you want to be? What are the steps that you feel you can take? And then I give my, you know, quote unquote expert advice on the steps that I feel they can take to get there. Put a realistic timeline on what I think they need to do to get to that point.
Mm.
Um, if what they're talking about is realistic, and then we attack it aggressively every session. But yeah, I'm big on meet them where they're at, find out what they need the most. Um, what do you need the most right now to get you to where you want to be? Um, and how can we chip away at that long term goal? And it's been a great little recipe so far.
Dude, I love the passion. I can just tell when another coach is in it for the right reason and it just oozes off you. So I love it. Here's a question. I was just thinking because not a lot of our guests are from the private sector. And I just thought of this question and I was thinking about this to myself. So I get the feeling that I'm 38. I've been doing this, oh my God, since I was 18. So unbelievably, I've been doing it for like, I feel like I'm lying, but I've been doing it for 18, 19 years. What I'm
Yep.
saying is I've established myself at a certain level where I can kind of say yes to some people and no to some people. The question I have for you that I've never asked another coach is there a type of client that you will not take?
Yeah, yeah. I'm lucky enough right now to be at that point as well,
Yep.
where I'm able to. I'm able to say yes, and I'm able to say no if I want to. Um, Now, for the most part, I'm never gonna say no off the bat. Like that, I can't think if it's happened before. Um, but the type of client that I would not like if we came in and we do an assessment day or something, it if I can tell that you don't love basketball, if I can tell that you don't love like if I feel like your mom and dad are just begging you to come, that's gonna be a red flag.
Yep.
I might not just say, "Hey, this ain't the right fit" right off the bat, but that's gonna be a red flag. I might give you a month, like hop on a membership. We don't have contracts. It's month to month. Hop on a month, and I'll have a conversation, a real conversation with the kid and a parent, and say, "Look, you know, this type of program that I run, I have a select amount of spots because one, my space limitations that I currently have, and two, my family time that I have, it's untouchable. Like I have built-in family time that I will not train, and so I only have a certain amount of spots that I can train, and I feel like you might not be the best fit for that spot right now based on XYZ. You know what I mean? And I like you as a person. I just don't think that it's a good fit. And so yeah, I mean, it has nothing to do with the skill level, has nothing to do with age level,
Yep.
has nothing to do with anything other than passion, love, and an attitude. You know what I mean? It's
Yep.
it's if you just sulk and you don't look like you're, you know, and trust me, I think I'm pretty fun to train with, but like if I have to constantly beg for your effort and for you to have an approachable attitude, I will not train you.
Yep. Yep. Totally understand. So again, it's rare that I get someone from the private sector in. So we're gonna ask. This question is gonna be, and would you rather this or would you rather this, A or B? The guy
Yeah.
who you get a player who doesn't want to train, or you get the parent who thinks they know more than you because you
Mm.
started reading 2 weeks ago and now he knows everything, or he just got his slap and glass membership and now he knows how to break down a UCLA four high down screen stagger, so now he knows everything. Which one would you rather take?
Oh, that's tough. That's tough.
See, you can only ask another guy in the private sector this and they fully understand what you're talking about.
That is, if you ask me tomorrow, I might have a different answer. But for today, the way I'm feeling right now, I think that I would rather give the kid a shot and and
Yep,
try
me
to
too.
try to instill passion and love for the game and for the process into that kid. If not for basketball purposes, for him to develop or her to develop healthy habits for the rest of their lives, to have a fitness education. Um, that's probably what I would go with.
Yep. I would too. I definitely would as well. But you know what I'm talking about. So, but we could go hours and hours on that one with what we've seen and ridiculous stories. But what I want to do is I want to ask, especially that we have a guy in the like yourself in the performance sector. My question to myself when it comes to performance is how do you bridge the gap between the skills world, the X and O's world, and the athletic performance world?
Yeah, so it's changing always. I had an idea of how I wanted it to look when I first started. That's not how it works today in my program. So I'm always adaptable. I'm always taking ideas or learning from other people and trying to adapt that to my own process and my own facility and environment. Um, but it really starts with the athlete and getting an idea for what they need, and then what they're doing with me. I have some athletes that just lift with me. I have some athletes that just get on the court with me, and then I have some athletes that do both. So that's a good starting point for like if I have somebody who's just doing one or the other, that's pretty easy. When I have both, that's when it can kind of get a little gray, and then we really have to communicate and work on like you said, blending the all of those elements. The big thing for me is it all comes down to stress, managing the stress that I'm imposing on them, and knowing the stress that they are getting elsewhere, whether it be another trainer, another practice, another whatever life, life event. At the end of the day, that's kind of what it boils down to, because that's the stress is what can literally make or break us. So if we manage that correctly or to the best of our ability, then I think we have a good shot at a good recipe. Um, from a more technical or tactical perspective, um, with my higher level players, I'm gonna work in a mix of all three. We're obviously gonna do the performance stuff in the weight room, speed and agility. We're gonna get on the court and we're gonna work on skill acquisition. Whether it be finding new moves that fit that player, or working on refining moves that they can use in the game. And then from the X's and O's standpoint, figuring out how are they going to be used on their team. That's the biggest thing for me. I'm a big film guy, so I'm looking at film. If they're going to a new team, I'm looking at film from uh, last year's import. If it's an overseas athlete, I'm looking at that team last year, who played the position that my athlete is going to go fill. How did they use them? So look, you're coming off a lot of screens, you're getting a lot of shots off screens, blah blah blah. Then we can work on that. Or maybe it's a point guard. So this is the offense they run. They have a ton of high ball screens. They do a lot of pistol action. They do, this league tends to drop their bigs. So then we're going to work on that. So it's really just knowing the game that they're going to play, and trying to fit that into their skill work. That's obviously for the top tier talent, like college and pro level. For the high school level and even younger into the middle school, I'm trying to give them the biggest foundation of skill that I possibly can. The biggest foundation, even if they never use like certain aspects of it. I'm big on creating as many of those patterns as possible, and kind of creating those, those files, so to say, in the system. That way they can bring them out at any point. So I'm huge on so many footwork options, catching uh, right, left, right hop, left hop, like all the different on the catch footwork options. Off the dribble, same thing. Going inside foot, going outside foot, going to a hop, you know, floater options, off one, off two, off non-dominant legs. All those, I'm trying to build the biggest library of movement on the court and in the weight room that I can, so that when it's time, hopefully at a higher level for them to get into those nitty gritty details where we're watching the film and kind of going in on that, they already have that foundation built. Because sometimes with the pros, I'm finding out that they don't always have that foundation. They still made it despite that. But when we're watching film or we're trying to go over moves or concepts and actions, they may not have ever seen or done that. So then we're having to learn that, which comes with a learning curve, and then apply it. Versus if you already know it or have done it before or seen it before, when it's time to apply it, I think it just makes it so much more smooth. So that's kind of a roundabout answer. Hopefully that makes sense.
No, it totally makes sense. And my question would be, you're building that foundation, which I think is perfectly fine and it's great and it's necessary. Would you, for the youth, would you sprinkle in a lot of terminology, even though it's not being used? Say they come off a ball screen and all of a sudden, I mean, this rarely happens in youth, maybe in America, but not a lot in international game. Someone ices the ball screen. They hard hedge the ball screen. I'm talking about middle school, right? So that doesn't really
Hmm.
happen. Would you plant that terminology in their mind at a very young age? So heard it, and so and they get like the basic outline of it. Agree. They and they may have never faced an ice, right? Or they may
Shoot, I lost you for a second.
think it just went.
Can you hear me?
Can
You there?
you hear me? I can hear you. Yep.
All right, cool. Yeah, I lost you at the end. Um, Sorry, I don't know. My Wi-Fi might be acting up.
But can you hear me now?
Yep,
Yeah, you can hear me now. So what I was asking is,
yep.
would you would you ingrain those terminologies into them like at a middle school and high school level, so by the time they go into college or even the pro level, they've at least heard of it, they know maybe some kind of solutions off of it. They don't need to be great at it, but at least they know of what you're talking about.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. We do it on the court and in the weight room. Like I use VBT in the weight room, and so some people may say like, why are you measuring a 13-year-old's like front squat bar
Velocity, yeah.
speed? Yeah, it's like because one, it drives intent. Two,
Yep.
now I'm educating them on VBT. So anywhere they go after this, they know how to use VBT and they understand what those velocity zones mean and how it, kind of puts a name to a face of how they're feeling. Like, oh, I want to grind out a heavy rep. That's like a point four. I know what that feels like, and I know what that should move like. Or I'm trying to move it as quick as possible. That's a 0.85. Now they know what that feels like, and so on the court, same thing. Like I'm building in as much terminology as I can with those young kids. Like you said, hard hedging, icing screens, even on the offensive side, like all the different reads that you can make off of a pick and roll, like um, I'm big on like rejecting screens as a ball handler. Like I'm saying, like,
For
well, you
sure.
got the ball in your hand. You're supposed to your job is to put your team in the best position to score. You got the ball in your hand. They're cheating the screen, reject it, and their whole coverage is blown up, which is crazy at a middle school level. But it's actually like probably more natural for them at that time than
Yep.
anything. So yeah, I'm building that in. I'm building in. It's hard with the basketball terminology because everybody has their own kind of
Yep.
thing, especially when it comes to
Yep.
moves. And then you have trainers that try to kind of make up their own terminology, which is fine. But it's like you can. It gets dangerous a little bit when we're all saying the same thing like 28 different ways, and it's like, okay, is the kid doing what you want him to do? Yeah. Okay. Well, then who cares what it's called at a certain point? But I'm big on, like you said, instilling that foundational education, even if it seems like a waste of time or unnecessary at that moment, for hopefully a future moment where they are now ahead of their peers because of the work that they put in years prior.
Yep. That's excellent. That's really good. And it's good to hear that because a lot of people may not believe in that, but it's I think it's imperative. So it's amazing that you're doing that. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about business because I feel that as coaches, we are givers. We want to give ourselves, and you were telling me about your foundation, which we'll be talking about later. But we want to give, and a lot of the times, especially in the beginning, we may give at the detriment of us, right? And you know
Hmm.
exactly what I'm talking about. What are some things that you would advise um, coaches, whether they're in the college sector or the private sector, what are some of the things when it comes to finances and business that you feel are absolutely crucial for young coaches to hear?
That's tough.
Yep.
That's a good question. That's a good question. In terms of finances and business, at the end of the day, like when I first started my coaching career, I I I don't know like how to say this other than just being like direct. Like I thought that I thought that it was supposed to just like pay shit and then I would
Right.
just be like, yeah, I just love it. You know what I mean? But it's
Right.
like
Right.
it shouldn't be like that. There's no business
No.
that operates like that.
No. Right.
It wasn't for a few years where I was like, hold on a second. Like it's okay to want to make money. Like it's
Yeah.
okay to like get wealthy by doing something you love that happens to be very beneficial for others. Like you said, at the end of the day, like we're givers and like that I think is my overarching, mission is to help others and help the youth, especially as it relates to basketball. And the vehicle that I use just so happens to be training. And
Right.
but it's like it took me a while to realize that you can actually want both. You could want a great financial situation and not be selfish and not screw people over and do it the right way and help people. And I think it took me like 3 or 4 years to realize that because I'm like, I always saw, I'm not in it for the money type vibe. And I'm like, yeah, me neither. Like, I'm not in it for the money. And then I'm like, but like I have to pay for my mortgage and my car note, and I have a kid on the way, and yeah, I'm in it for the money. Like, but I'm also in it for the kids. It can be both, 100%. And so that is the biggest thing that I would say is you have to have, and this is kind of this goes back to just people how they grew up and how
Yep.
everybody has a different relationship with money. Like
Yep.
I didn't grow up with money, so like
Yep.
i I have a kind of a bad relationship with money because of just how it was.
Yep.
So it's like that I think is something that obviously you got to work on yourself, but develop a good relationship with money, develop a good business mindset, and understand that you can 100% be in it for the right reasons and still understand the need to have financial stability for yourself and your family, both presently today and in the future. So I think a lot of years it was one or the other, but I'm telling you, it's got to be both. It has to be
Yep.
both because like on the other side, you can't just be about the money because then you don't give a shit about the product or the kids. So it actually has to be both.
For sure. For sure. Now, we talked briefly about the GEMS Foundation. Tell us a little bit about that because I know that's something that is near and dear to your heart.
Yeah, yeah. So I have a 501(c)(3) nonprofit organization called the Gym Sessions Foundation, and what we do is we help supply young student athletes with crucial resources that they need to not only better themselves on the court, but also off the court. So we're looking at not just training resources, not just training services. We're looking at tutoring services. We're looking at, mental health services. We're looking at mindset services. Um, Anything that's going to help create, like my thing is complete basketball development. That's what I think I provide, complete basketball development. So yeah, there's the basketball side of things, the actual sport, but then there's the whole other part of things like life as an athlete, or a student athlete or a former athlete. So we're kind of expanding also into the youth stuff is definitely important, but we're also going to look at that post career. What does that look like?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
job readiness. Do you know how to create a resume, apply for jobs? Do you know how to conduct yourself on an interview, what to wear, how to follow up. Think how can you go out and you know, get internships, shadowing, what events to go to, that type of thing. So that's kind of our next phase is that post career. What what do you transition into? And that's equally important because you and I both know that basketball players. I know I can speak for myself. Like we wrap our entire identities
Yep.
around an orange ball, and
Yes.
and like put it this way, LeBron James is going to go down as one of the best of all time, and he's going to play for probably 25 years in the NBA. But he's probably going to live to be 100. So 1/4 of his life is spent doing this one thing, right? Or at the professional level, but he still has a whole life after basketball. And we don't understand like how young we really are when our careers end. Like I said,
Yep.
sometimes it's 18, sometimes it's 20, sometimes it might be 45. But you're still
Yep.
going to have years, decades um, beyond to turn into a pro in a different lane, whether it be business, sales. You know, some people go into totally different industries. So that's a big thing we're focusing on, and you know, eventually, I would like it to become a facility. Like I would like my headquarters for the nonprofit to have, you know, my office and all that stuff, but we have a basketball court or more, a weight room, and it would be a dream to be able to have a facility where there are no membership fees. Everything is 100% free for the athletes, for the clients, for the members, because we're having, you know, sponsors and donors and all the things on the nonprofit side, to, you know, keep that business afloat, keep the door open, pay my staff, pay myself. But for the athletes, it would be, you know, an application process to be accepted into the program, and it's a full thing. It's a,
Yep.
you know, it's a thing that you have to qualify for and adhere to standards. You can't be goofing around in school. You can't get in trouble. You got to be conducting yourself, you know, on and off the court in a professional way. And then there's also going to be, you know, other tasks that they have to complete, such as, you know, community service and, you know, doing things like that to upkeep the standard of what we want our program to be, developing young men, young women to be not just ballers on the court, but like real deal human beings that are
Yep.
going to go out and be special people, whether they play basketball or not. You know, that's really what it's all about. So that's the kind of the 10-year vision for the foundation.
No, it's beautiful. It's very, very good. And for someone who owns their own nonprofit like me, I think we need more of this kind of stuff in the world. And so kudos to you for doing that. It's amazing. Last question, because we have to wrap up, is you have some of the best content out there. And for my followers, definitely go and check Justin out on, I follow him on Instagram, but I discovered he also has a YouTube channel. Where's the best place that people can get in contact with you? Because, oh, he also has some great online stuff. And definitely go check that out. Where do you want people to reach you?
Instagram is probably the best. That's my hub. That's kind of where you can branch out and find everything. So it's just Justin Ochoa 317. That's my tag on pretty much every social media. So you can find me on there. And I'm trying to get better at really like interacting and creating a community. So if you follow me, shoot me a note. Let's connect, and definitely, I'm looking forward to, you know, learning more from the listeners of this show and connecting with people.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time and your expertise. I'm serious. I look forward to having you back and we can go into more depth about a lot of the other topics we talked about.
Yeah, man, I'm always down for a part two. Just let me know.
All right. Just hold the line real quick.